Welcome into the Rotowire Fantasy Football Podcast. We're looking ahead to the 2022 draft season. We're going to break down some best ball early ADP because, yes, we have already started drafting a little bit for next season. We're also going to get into Mario's Dynasty Watch series, maybe get into some free agent quarterbacks as well. So, fun show ahead. Let's get it rolling. Welcome back in, Rotowire Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, John McKechnie, joined as always by Mario Puig. This podcast presented to you by our good friends over at WinBet. Before we get started, Mario, I saw a tweet this morning that interested me. Figured I'd share it along with you. At LSU, Louisiana State University, a raccoon fell through the dining hall ceiling, and I took that to mean that it's the Bayou version of their 6 more weeks of winter.
Yeah, it could be that. I just can't believe all these raccoon amateurs you got nowadays. Like people act like they've never seen a raccoon before, or know to act like they don't know that you gotta check around or listen into the attic to make sure you don't have raccoons building a vast colony in there. Because they'll get in there and they'll have like a little coliseum going, and they like fight each other, and it's brutal, and they get really loud. And yeah, if you don't do something about it, eventually they'll crash through your ceiling, maybe while you're having dinner, and or wherever the dining space is. And yeah, it's kind of a shocking tale. I thought LSU was a more respectable institution.
They clearly got to pick up their dining services game. I remember being at Georgia, and the main like sales pitch during the orientation was how good their meal plan was, and less focus on the academics and more just like you're going to eat really well here. It's like, all right, yeah, I'm good with that.
Were they right? As long as it wasn't false advertising, I guess. Like
they actually were like
pertinent.
we had one dining hall that was like 24 hours during the week, so that was pretty sick. No, good UGA dining services,
And
top
no
notch.
raccoons.
No raccoons, not nary even a squirrel was ever spotted in those fine spaces. But I digress. I just wanted to pass that along. But let's go ahead. Let's get rolling. So myself, Mario, and I'm sure you're not far behind if you haven't already done one, but sicko such as myself has already done a best ball draft. It's not quite as involved as like what it once was, because on Underdog you can do those fast drafts, so it's really not like a huge time commitment.
Right.
But I went ahead and did one when I was bored on Tuesday night, and here's what I came up with. I was picking out of the sixth spot, and I was having a little bit of trouble deciding if I wanted Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson at 6, but Jamar Chase went fourth, so that kind of made up my mind for me. And this is a half point PPR format, but I still feel like Jefferson could still be ascending. Again, assuming that Kirk Cousins remains in Minnesota, but I felt comfortable going receiver in the first round, like more so than I ever have. I did take Tyreek Hill. I think I had one share of Tyreek in the first round from last year, and that was fine. He went 10th overall. But after I went with Jefferson, I had Nick Chubb, Kyle Pitts, J.K. Dobbins, Lamar Jackson, Traylon Burks, Jerry Jeudy, CEH, and Rashad Penny were my first 9 selections in this draft out of the sixth spot. How'd I do?
Well, Justin Jefferson at 6, I think, is one of the kind of ideal ways to start out right now. And more than any year I can remember, really, I feel like it makes a lot of sense to take a wide receiver in the first round, even if it's not one of the first 3 wide receivers taken in the first round, because there's more, I guess you wouldn't say mid-round exactly, but rounds like 3 through 6, and I guess in your case, even 8 and 9, have more running back depth at the moment anyway than I can remember in quite a while. So Aaron Jones going in the 4th round, along with guys like Elijah Mitchell, Ezekiel Elliott. That's kind of one of the sweet spots, I think. And then also where you got Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Rashad Penny. that's kind of the sort of crew that I want at running back is like Chubb, Dobbins, Edward Solaire, Penny. That top four strikes me as totally good. Probably like, I don't know. I don't know how much it makes, how much it's worth like getting into like where it ranks in the league, but I think it's definitely good enough to win it, assuming you are hitting at the other spots that you need to, which Justin Jefferson at wide receiver and Kyle Pitts at tight end is a great start toward that end.
Yeah, I thought so too. And yeah, to your point, you can feel a lot more comfortable. It's not really going contrarian to go receiver early and wait on running backs when you have guys like Elijah Mitchell, Aaron Jones, J.K. Dobbins in the fourth. Are you surprised at all at how far exactly Ezekiel Elliott fell? He was the 45th overall selection.
I'm
this
surprised
one.
about a few things.
Out?
Yeah, sorry. I'm surprised about a few things. This is I think it's safe to say interesting as these drafts happening right now might be, the ADP that they're showing, especially the next couple of weeks, is going to just completely get rearranged. I don't know, maybe within like a month even. I guess we'll see how the BestBall offseason ecosystem looks this particular year. I can imagine it being like a little more intense every year, just because, every year there's more thirst, and further earlier into the off season, things start to get going, it seems, every year. So maybe we'll see some actual, what do you call it? Solidifying or whatever of the ADP, because some of these things are just, I don't expect to see happen in any drafts that I'm in, like Aaron Jones in the fourth. I guess I understand like the Aaron Rodgers concern, but Aaron Jones is a good player. It's not like Aaron Rodgers made Aaron Jones. Aaron Rodgers couldn't make Jamal Williams happen, So they got a good offensive line. And if Rodgers does come back, there's no good basis for letting Aaron Jones, in my opinion, fall out of like the top, I don't know. I think he's justifiable in like the top 15 somewhere. So falling in the fourth round, along with Elijah Mitchell, and who I'm quite high on, by the way. I don't know if people think that like, oh, Trey Sermon might catch him next year, or they might draft somebody because he has bad draft capital. It's like, do you think Kyle Shanahan is really like, oh, I gotta find a way to spend more money at running back now that I have a 6th rounder who's a good starter? It's like I have to find a way to spend more there. It's like, no, he's gonna start Elijah Mitchell next year. So to me, Elijah Mitchell is more like I don't know. You don't need to take him in the third or anything, because it's not like there weren't like wrong picks going ahead of him. It's I guess that's all that much more to the point of like, because I don't feel strongly about which running back is going. Antonio Gibson, 16th overall. Fine. I don't have anything wrong with him there. I like Antonio Gibson quite a lot, actually. But why am I going to take him there if Alvin Kamara is going 22nd, if Aaron Jones is going 40-something, along with Mitchell, Ezekiel Elliott, and Dobbins? I'm still really high on Dobbins. So, I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of get those really good wide receivers and tight ends in those first sort of 3-4 rounds, and sort of take whoever falls at running back, because I don't know how you get like a strong reaction between that group, in the 4th round. I'll take any of those guys and be really happy with it.
Totally. I mean, these are a lot of guys that are going in the first round, or at the worst, late second in a lot of cases. I mean, like you said, now we're seeing Alvin Kamara be a late 2nd round selection.
I guess we'll have to see about his court case, to be fair, because that stuff sounds really bad.
Didn't seem good, and I know that they found like the 3rd guy in that case who was a Chiefs
He needs
player.
A friend to take the fall, basically, because he incriminated himself pretty bad with what he told the police. I attacked him because he was running away. Like, oh no, you meant to say the opposite. He was running at you. That's what you got to say.
I was running away. My fists were flailing.
Yeah, he was running for his life. I was terrified. Yeah.
So scary. Your thoughts that someone with an experienced badge over on Underdog took Christian McCaffrey at 2nd overall. Do you expect him to remain in that top 2 discussion? I think it was pretty well established by November that Jonathan Taylor would go 1-1, but with 2 just injury riddled, non-productive seasons for Christian McCaffrey, had a catastrophic cost for those who invested in him as the number 1 overall pick. Do you see some hesitance that might start to form when it comes to taking McCaffrey? Like, would you be comfortable with just bumping Cooper Kupp up to number 2 overall in half and full point PPR formats? Or, where do you see Christian McCaffrey's draft stock going? And do you have any interest as it stands right now if he remains in the top 2?
Yeah, it's complicated. It's not easy, but I feel like it's not easy to I should say make like a hard order between these players. It's almost a little bit like I was just saying with the running backs. I don't really feel that much strongly about the fourth and even like the 8th round running backs versus some of the second round ones. It's like there's a lot of justifiable picks that you could make that don't strike me as anything close to just wrong. Like sometimes there are some years where I'm like, oh yeah, this guy should not be going here. There's no reason that the reasoning doesn't even start to get off the ground. But with McCaffrey, it's like, yeah, fair enough, touche to anyone who's very concerned about his durability. What can you tell anyone to make them feel better about that? Like he just missed 2 years, and it's brutal when you pay the highest pick, as I would imagine both years. He was probably first. So it's like highest pick to get that result. You can't really tell anyone they're wrong for being terrified of that. But the way I look at it, I personally don't I think McCaffrey might be in some sort of decline or whatever, but I don't feel strong enough about it. Like I'm not sure enough about that to tell anyone not to take him even first overall. Like it's fair either way. It's like if someone's like, I don't want anything to do with him in the first 5-6 picks, it's like, yeah, touche. I don't really know what to tell you. But if someone says I want to take him first overall, same response from me. I got no real argument against it. And obviously, I'm a Jonathan Taylor super fan, but I think it's totally justified to take McCaffrey first overall again, because if he doesn't get hurt, he's gonna rake. Like it's just as simple as that. So maybe he does get hurt a third year in a row. Like maybe rather than 2 years of bad luck, it was 2 years of a beginning decline trend, and maybe the third year marks another point of decline for him. But if it doesn't, he will rake and be a first overall pick in 2023.
Okay, I think that I was just perhaps overreacting, but
Oh no, not
I
at
would
all.
like.
Like I said, it's like it's so hard to like. How are you going to tell anyone that they're wrong for like whatever their belief is on it? I don't even know what I believe is what I that's my position basically.
Yeah, it's 2 years. It's a position that's extremely physically demanding, and the old adage goes like you're durable until you're not. Like McCaffrey had heavy workloads dating back to his time at Stanford. Had an insane amount of touches in that great 2019 season. Was good the year prior as well, and so you can totally see where that upside is, and it's going to be interesting to see. And I think it's going to be very much the Scott Pianowski adage, like every draft is a snowflake, like they're all unique. So we're going to see some rooms that are less averse to McCaffrey, and obviously it's only going to matter for the first 5 or so slots in a given draft. But I wouldn't be completely surprised if there are enough people turned off by these last 2 years and maybe comfortable enough with investing in like a Cooper Kupp or a Jamar Chase instead. But like you said, if you assume McCaffrey at 16 games, so not even 17, it's just one missed game, you're still probably getting a killer season out of that.
Oh, absolutely. I guess the only other thing I can think of with McCaffrey is he will go higher in the tournament drafts and lower in the ones that more so resemble cash game payouts. Don't really know how to make the call on those leagues that are just like top 2, top 3, whatever, that are not in the big tournament. Still think it makes sense to take McCaffrey there, but you're going to see him definitely go more often first or second, higher in general in those big tournament leagues that they do, because in the event that McCaffrey doesn't get hurt, he's on a lot of winning teams. And the other side of that same coin is if you're a high volume best ball drafter, you'll want to sort of, I don't know what the magic number would be, but even if you're buying into McCaffrey at first or second overall, you'll want to keep track of kind of like your exposure percentage, and maybe take the position of buying the price, maybe even buying aggressively up until you reach a certain percentage, and then hold off until you get some other drafts to diversify. And if that number gets low enough, start buying again if nothing bad has happened since, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, and I'm sure we'll both be well into anywhere between 20 and 50 best balls. That maybe I'm being conservative
Yeah,
on
by
the
then I'll
estimate.
try not to know the number, whatever it is.
So yeah, just bear that in mind. I think that's a really smart way to contextualize it. It's like McCaffrey, a good pick, but you don't want to go full like 100% exposure. Let's see here. Moving onward, uh, let's see here. I got Lamar Jackson as my quarterback. He was, I think, the fifth quarterback taken because we had Mahomes, we had Josh
Yeah.
Allen, for the QB1, Mahomes, Herbert the third, Burrow the fourth, and Lamar Jackson the fifth. And I got him in the middle of the fifth round. And I was comfortable with that. And the way that I had built my roster to that point, I already had a tight end. I already had a couple of running backs. I could have gone with the receiver there. Gabriel Davis just went a few picks after that. I was surprised to see Amon-Ra St. Brown and Darnell Mooney go ahead of Gabriel Davis. I'm not totally sure what that's about, but we can talk about that in a second. But your thoughts on Lamar setting in at his new draft price?
Yeah, I love the player, and I even love the personnel on that team, but I don't know what to make. I don't know how to balance those points with what I think is a cripplingly bad offensive coordinator in Greg Roman. So I realize that the injuries to the running backs, injuries, and I guess trade in the case of Orlando Brown, offensive line got worse too. Maybe that stuff sort of like lessened the margin of error for Roman, but to me, Roman is the problem. And I think, especially when it's any time that they're playing a good defense, I worry about them getting outclassed because Greg Roman is just he's just a big sitting duck. He's easy to take out. So that's Lamar's problem. Other quarterbacks don't have that problem. Some do. Some other quarterbacks have stupid coordinators, of course. There's Kyler Murray and Dak Prescott. In the next round, they face very similar limitations, I think. But yeah, at 54, I guess in the fifth round, and especially in the case of a team like yours where you already have, I would say anyway, already have running back, wide receiver, tight end accounted for. With that the case, it's like the concerns that I might have about Lamar kind of don't matter as much. It's like I worry about sticking my neck out to acquire him, but I don't think you're doing that at that spot.
No, I don't think so either. And I was encouraged by basically pre-injury and pre-illness Lamar. He was starting to do things that this past season that we hadn't seen in the past, like his ability to lead the offense to comebacks when they were trailing by 10 plus points. Like we hadn't seen that yet from him, and he was able to do it. So I was impressed by that. Of course, the things were unfortunate towards the end of the season, spraining his ankle against the Browns and missing that game against the Bears. And of course, just kind of being out for that stretch run of the season, that can kind of sour, some recency bias could sour it. As far as Roman goes, like, how do you kind of like conflate like the 2019 season that was just absurd versus what we're seeing now and what we could see in 2022? Because like you mentioned, the offensive line was markedly worse last year. Like having to play Alejandro Villanueva is just a problem. Like that was apparent from the first game of the season against the Raiders that they were going to have struggles. Also, just having a completely patchwork running back core. I think that they need to have Dobbins and Edwards, or back in 2019, like the Ingram Edwards combo. They need to kind of have that, I think, for this offense to fully work. I know both guys are coming off season-ending injuries, but if they're back to being productive and you have legitimate run threats from the running back position, does that help the offense a little bit more?
Maybe, but as much as they lost something with the running back injuries and the general regression on the offensive line, it's also true that they had by far the best pass catching personnel they've ever had there in Baltimore, and the results got worse. So I don't even think it's really that much personnel related. Like I think so that 2019 season, the MVP Lamar season, I think that sort of result happens even if 2020 Alejandro Villanueva is starting and if the running backs are the guys last year, because what happened in my opinion is not so much that any of the player reps got worse. in the time in between. It's that defenses adjusted to what they were showing. And the 2019 MVP season, it was a blindside. They didn't know what to do. They were in the middle of these games. Everything's going wrong. They can't catch Lamar, and they don't understand how to deal with these threats that he's posing that no other quarterback ever has. And after 2-3 years of looking at it and being like, how do we stop this? They found a couple clues, and they changed their approach to adjust to what the Ravens were putting up, and Greg Roman did not counter adjust. Greg Roman was found out, and that's it. That's how he works. He goes to a place, he has some amount of initial success, and he's good at installing, I guess, like the basic principles of especially like the run concepts that they use. And then when it doesn't work one day, all he can do is press the button the same time. Press the same button again and just keep pressing it, hope the results get better. They won't. He's been figured out. He could have made things better in a few simple ways, and he didn't. So I don't think he's ever going to be any good. But by kind of, it wasn't even like up to him when Lamar got hurt and Tyler Huntley had to play and they could not throw downfield. They unintentionally made the offense better, even when Huntley out there, and Huntley, he's fine, but he's not very good. Lamar is. The offense was better for a couple games there with Huntley, not because Lamar played worse at any point. It's because Roman started calling different plays because he couldn't run the same plays that he did with Lamar, and specifically throwing downfield. And the thing, if there was one particular adjustment that I'd say defense has made to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense since his MVP season, it's that they sit with that off coverage. They play a lot more defensive backs than they did initially. They don't even bother trying to like fit the run gaps exactly. They just sort of like sit back, hope that they have enough pursuers to not stop Lamar in the run game, but keep it from being the reason they lose. And then when the Ravens have to throw, in the event that you especially get a score or two on the Ravens and they have to throw, you just stop trying to cover those receivers. You play zone coverage exclusively for a couple of reasons. You keep eyes on Lamar so he can't run as much. Man coverage, that's when he's lighting you up because your corners are turning their backs to him and then he's running and no one even knows that he's running until he's 20, 30 yards downfield. That doesn't happen anymore. It won't happen again unless Greg Roman is removed or unless Greg Roman starts calling different routes. But whereas like the Ravens kept running these deep routes right into these off coverages of these corners over and over and over, and Lamar standing back there looking around and like no one's getting open, and they're like, why won't Lamar throw it? Because the receivers are running into the coverage. The coverage is sitting where they run their routes. Lamar was talking 2 years ago about how the other teams knew their plays, and like that's still going on. That's actually like basically the problem. It's not so much that they know the plays, it's that they know they only run certain types of plays and that they don't have to defend certain looks. And to the Ravens, it might feel like, oh, they know our plays. Like, no, you just don't run enough plays for anyone to ever be wrong when they guess anymore. So it's a little different. And with Huntley, because they couldn't throw downfield, that off coverage was finally adjusted to, even though Roman didn't even mean to do it. Roman should have called short routes with Lamar out there, and it didn't. When Huntley came in, he had to call short routes because Huntley can't throw 10 yards. And the defenses with those off coverages, especially initially when Huntley played, were not adjusting to that. So Huntley was hitting all these underneath routes, and people are like, oh, he's getting rid of the ball quicker than Lamar. Like, yeah, because they're running routes that Lamar never had in the playbook to start with. So I don't know. Roman, if he had the light go on in that moment and say like, oh, duh, if they're playing off coverage and we can't run to make them get out of the off coverage, then let's call some short passes and see how that goes. But that didn't occur to him until Lamar got hurt. And I don't think the actual insight ever occurred to him. I think he just was like, oh, we got to throw short because Tyler's in. And it never occurred to him why any of it worked. I don't think he can figure anything out.
Yeah, if there were to be one coordinator that I would have preferred the Ravens let go of this offseason, it probably would have been
He
Roman
sucks.
over
He's a
Martindale.
joke. I don't like him.
So with that in mind, without having done at least have you done a best ball yet for this?
No, I'm kind of preoccupied with some stuff, but I would guess in like a couple of weeks I'll start doing that stuff.
So with that in mind, and you being able to see how the quarterback market shaped up, I remember last year we were talking about how that certain tier that Dak, Kyler, Lamar, maybe one or two
Herbert.
other guys were Herbert probably in that same range, and you kind of took the position of I'll just take what the draft gives me in the sense that like I like all these guys enough at where they're going. I'll just kind of wait until the last one's available or the second to last one and go from there. Do you have a bit more of a structured like tier ranking for this, say Herbert through Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. And looking at the board as it shook out in your case, like Josh Allen going 23rd when Mahomes doesn't go till 34th, and then the third quarterback is Herbert at 40. It's like I don't really like any of those prices. I guess Mahomes is my favorite of those because I'm higher on Herbert than most people, but I don't think he should be going within like 5 picks of Mahomes exactly. And meanwhile, uh, I don't feel strongly enough about anyone being the quarterback one to take them whatever this is 11 picks before the second quarterback. So I don't see anything that I obviously like. But then even in the cheaper cases of like these 6th round guys, Kyler, Dak, I like them both, and I'll probably take them both in that range. But it's not like I'll be super confident about it because just like Greg Roman with the Ravens, like Mike McCarthy is a buffoon with Dallas, or Kellen Moore, whoever's fault it is, and Cliff Kingsbury just an oaf for the Cardinals. And Kyler Murray and Dak can't do anything about that. So it's like it's great that they're good players and even have some talent around them, but like they're going to get 80% returns relative to their talent, and other teams, other players are going to get 100% or sometimes more, when they actually have legitimately good coaching. And I think you can call Stafford that, but I don't want Stafford in the 6th round at all. It's like Stafford is interesting to me at last year's price, not at 6th round. So with that said, also 7th round, Trey Lance, Jalen Hurts. I can't trust either of those guys as much as I like Lance. I can't trust him for anything right now. So quarterback looks like a minefield to me. I do like, I think your 54 for Lamar price, the best out of all of them here, followed by, I guess, Mahomes at 34. But yeah, it's tough. And the other thing too, John, if you look through the rest of your draft, it's not easy to get depth. Like it's really easy to end up with liabilities at quarterback the way this one turned out. Like you got it's like Derek Carr going in the 11th round now, Trevor Lawrence. I like Trevor too, but in the 10th round, it's like it's not somewhere I want to be taking him especially at least until they hopefully add some decent pass catchers on that team. It's like all across the Malik Willis at 134 in the 12th round with Daniel Jones. Like those two are your 12th round options. It's like maybe you really do want to get quarterback tied up by like the 9th round or something. I don't know what to do there.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's messy, and like you said, Willis. Yeah, like it. I think there's a very strong chance that he's the first quarterback off the board.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm not taking. I guess I might take him over Daniel Jones, but I would feel gross about both.
Man, is Carson Wentz going in the 15th? Like we don't know that guy's going to play in 2022. Yeah, there's a lot of just total landmines. Like some players that I think in the draft is like I'm not saying they're bad picks. It's like you got to take a quarterback eventually, and it's like if you're going through the whole draft, like not a good deal, not a good deal. Like, eventually, you got to take somebody. So I understand why, but it's like repeatedly these quarterback picks, you're seeing people take on a lot of risk without, in my opinion, all that much upside, and with none of the risk baked into the price. It's like you don't get any bargains for all these problems you're getting.
No, you really don't. You contextualize it with Kyler and Dak, but you can
I guess I
extrapolate
need to
that
get them.
further.
I guess I'm like, I just have to make that pick, and I'm like, oh, gross, but it's the least gross ones to me, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean Trey Lance is leap of faith kind of, even though we like what he has in his tool bag, but you just don't know with him entering presumably his first year as the full-time starter. Jalen Hurts just shows that he has the limitations, shows that he has, he can give you a decent floor, but I don't think that he has that many weeks that really are like those quote unquote spike weeks. So I'm not super in on him. I'll be interested to see though if the Eagles continue to add to their group of pass catchers. But when it comes to Lawrence, how shook should we be from last year? And now the fact that Urban's gone and that they're airing the place out, getting rid of all the stench left behind by the Urban regime. Do you think that there's reason to be bullish on Trevor Lawrence, or do you think that this is a spot where you should continue to just kind of let him fall to 10th, 11th, 12th, something like that?
So I went into this offseason expecting to buy Trevor Lawrence, as I mistakenly did last year. But that was largely too because I figured everyone was going to be so low on him. And maybe in a draft that you're not in, maybe Lawrence will fall into that like 15th round range. And if he falls past the 12th, I'll buy in bulk again. I don't care. even watch like disaster tape from Lawrence's rookie year, the whole time I'm just thinking like, this guy is awesome. This guy is so good. I can't believe the numbers, and I can't believe how inept and negligent of a person Urban Meyer must be to get the results that he did. But I like I said, I'm not lying either. Like, I'm not just trying to lie to myself. Like, I watched these Trevor incomplete passes, these Trevor, not so much the interceptions. You can't really think those look good, but these plays, especially these drop passes and stuff, it's like he makes so many throws that basically nobody can make. And especially after a case like Josh Allen, where he was brutal in college and his first couple of years in the NFL, and especially his first year in the NFL. And obviously, at least given the improved offensive coordinator and then surrounding personnel, he became what he is now and has been for a couple of years now. So Lawrence starting from this low point and getting to the top would be something that already has some precedent, at least with Allen. And it's, you think through, like, who would start at Wyoming if Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence had been there at the same time? It's not a question. Trevor Lawrence was an insanely good college quarterback, even as a true freshman, and playing for the worst team of all time, with not just in the sense of like, the talent around him. The talent around him was certainly bad, especially when DJ Chark got hurt. That was when it was really over, because once he got hurt, they weren't a serious offense at that point.
There's Laquan Treadwell time after that.
Yeah, he was the good one. They got to get rid of Marvin Jones too. He apparently doesn't think Trevor is good, but that's not true. And it's kind of like, oh man, I used to think you were smart, Marvin. But yeah, it's like watching Urban Meyer just create the most memorable, circus aflame that anyone has ever seen, and just looking like, oh man, that was a bad look for Trevor, not fixing that ridiculous train wreck single-handedly. That's ridiculous. But yeah, I think as much as I'm saying I'm surprised at Trevor going in the 10th, and I didn't really expect to or want to do that, I will definitely take him there over I don't know, Malik Willis before like the 15th round, or Daniel Jones in pretty much any round. Zach Wilson, Tannehill, not really interested in them. So
how about toss up Lawrence or Justin Fields?
So Fields is definitely a better runner than Lawrence. I don't know. I don't have a problem with the price. Fields went 100th overall, and you got Lawrence at 115th. It's like, I guess I'd prefer the 115 for Lawrence option, but especially with some of these other, like if Daniel Jones is going in the 12th, then Justin Fields in the 9th is totally reasonable,
right?
When adjusting for inflation, I guess.
Yeah, so it's tricky. Listener Mark chimed in saying he's tried to get Trevor Lawrence in a bunch of different spots, and there's no discount. It seems like can't find any deal on him. So maybe this is the case of people not being fooled by what they saw in what was a disastrous rookie season, and sticking to their analysis of who Trevor Lawrence is as a player.
Well, I guess that might also be, though, that like the people who are likely to own him were likely among the highest on him in the first place, and therefore like the least likely to panic so much over the rookie year. But you see a lot of people who are rather smart, even talking about Trevor Lawrence on Twitter and saying like, this is so bad. No one's ever been this bad. And look at really bad look for his rookie year and such. And I think and once it's understandable, certainly it looked bad enough. You could just watch it happen and get the point. The numbers make the point even clearer yet. But I think people need to accept that sometimes these numbers just don't mean anything. And sometimes, more than any other case, rookie year underclassmen quarterback numbers don't mean anything. And especially when the entire team around him is like not a serious professional operation or anything close to it. So I get it, but it's kind of frustrating to me when, like, we're just talking about the Josh Allen case. Like, if you're not prepared to say Josh Allen actually still sucks when he had the rookie year and even the year after that he did, then you can still certainly take the concern of Trevor Lawrence's rookie year and account for it, but to say that it's actually a reflection of him rather than just an imperfect bit of, barely applicable data point, like that's just not a reasonable frame. Like you need to understand that quarterback play is dependent on so many things, and especially when you're an underclassman rookie, it's like Mac Jones is probably like 2 years older than Trevor Lawrence, and like just think through, even with that same cursed Jaguars 2021 team, it's like if Trevor Lawrence is 2 years from now playing in that same scenario, the results are a lot better too. So there's a lot of context and perspective that you have to keep in mind, and we want there to be clear meaning in certain things where it just doesn't actually exist, and when we reach for it and try to figure things out that we can't, it's basically like I don't know, almost like a hubris kind of thing. But I am still in any case high on Lawrence just because certainly love the college production. That stuff is, all-time good stuff. But the basic deal is when I watch him play, I'm constantly thinking like I've never seen anyone do that. It's constantly. So I still think he's going to be a top 5 quarterback very soon.
I do too, and I think you can say that not all first overall picks are created equal, but also not all teams that get the number 1 overall pick are created equal. Like sometimes a team has a very down year, kind of made sure that they ended up securing that number 1 spot. It was well earned from Jacksonville in both 2020 and this past year. So that it's a special kind of teal colored dumpster fire there.
I do like Doug Peterson. It's insane how dysfunctional the Jaguars are, and the Trent Baalke thing is still really disheartening. Shad Khan is still an incredibly stupid person, but given how stupid Shad Khan is and how vile and toxic just the sludge man that Trent Baalke is, it's a miracle that they were able to get Doug Peterson in there. Like I wanted Byron Leftwich definitely, but Doug Peterson was a lot better of an outcome than I thought was possible the way things were going.
Yeah, 100%. So, that should stop the bleeding in a lot of ways and just kind of give Trevor something to work with in year 2. Before we get on to our next topic here, I got a message from our friends over at Blue Wire. And we've also got a message from our friends over at WynnBET. WynnBET is now the exclusive sponsor for Rotowire's fantasy podcast. WynnBET brings you all the latest action with a user-friendly interface, moneyline bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, round robins, live betting, and so much more at your fingertips. Want a break from sports betting? Head into WynnBET's digital casino and take a spin on roulette. Double down in blackjack, slam the slots, or try your hand at Baccarat. WynnBET is currently available in 9 states, expanding: Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia, while rapidly expanding. At WynnBET, the possibilities are limitless. Register for WynnBET today, make a qualifying deposit, and wager to receive $200 in free bets. Promotion may vary by state. Download WynnBET now. That's WYNNBET. WynnBET, the exclusive partner for Rotowire's fantasy podcast. All right, Mario. So we're gonna get onto a running back selection that I made in this one and kind of dovetail it, because I had already gotten a couple of starting running backs in Nick Chubb and J.K. Dobbins in the 2nd and 4th rounds respectively. But when I saw that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was available in the 8th and that Rashad Penny might make it back to me in the 9th, those were values that I simply couldn't pass up, and especially considering that I could have gone with it: Dalton Schultz, a Juju Smith-Schuster, Allen Robinson, or what's left of him, Christian Kirk, Adam Thielen. Like I'm just gonna be a little bit running back heavy if the drafts continue to shape up that way. But your thoughts on CEH's free fall and Penny's new ADP before we start diving in a little bit deeper on Penny?
Well, I like both of the picks, and it's not that I look through the other running back picks immediately before Edwards-Helaire and Penny and look at that and say like, oh, this was terrible, indefensible. I don't really think any of the picks are so bad ahead of him, but there's no good reason to be taking Devin Singletary ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, in my opinion. Like, we already did this with Singletary after his rookie year too. Like, he had a couple big games at the end of the year, burned out afterward because he isn't actually good. He's just a backup. And the Bills, for some reason, like him, which is fine, but they won't like him as much when he has the same regression he did the first time and starts fumbling like he always has and starts dropping passes like he always has. So taking Singletary, granted in the 7th, I was expecting him almost to go in like the 3rd, because I remember hearing Jeff and Chris talking about Singletary going in the 3rd. Like, don't take Singletary in the 3rd. Don't take him.
Don't do it.
Don't take him ahead of Edward Solaire or Rashad Penny. It's just so funny, the lack of perspective that people have, and like just kind of the bad memory in general that people have. Don't get me wrong, it's concerning that Andy Reid uses Edward Solaire the way he does. Andy Reid is kind of out of his mind in a lot of ways. The ways that he handles his personnel is completely indefensible. It really hurts the Chiefs what he does. So yeah, it's not good to see Edward Solaire playing behind McKinnon in those playoffs there, but McKinnon was playing on a veteran minimum. It was against the rules for the Chiefs to pay him less than they did, and no one else was willing to pay a dollar more. They didn't use him all year until week 17. He had a big game against the Steelers, who had the worst run defense in the NFL. And on that basis, Andy Reid decided, oh, we got to go with McKinnon. I guess McKinnon's the best one. He wasn't for 16 weeks. In fact, I couldn't get him on the field. I was putting Derek Gore on the field and Darrell Williams ahead of him. But now he's the best one. Now, Andy Reid seemed to sincerely believe that, but the second part is, obviously it's not true. And if it's obviously not true, we have to consider the possibility that Reid has that sort of light bulb go on eventually. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, try to remember the way people talked about him after his first 2 games. Try to remember the way they talked about him going into his rookie year. You had people telling other people they were morons for not taking him in the 5th, top 5 overall picks, rather. And then, yeah, he has 2 big games, gets hurt a couple times, and now people are like, oh, he's worse than McKinnon. He's worse than the guy that Kyle Shanahan basically cut to make room for JaMychal Hasty. He's worse than a guy that was a healthy scratch basically for 4 months. Like, no, something else might have changed, and it's not a good sign that Reid used McKinnon ahead. But he used McKinnon ahead of him because he had a big game in a setting. While Clyde Edwards-Helaire was hurt, by the way, he had a big game against the Steelers. It's like, if Edwards-Helaire wasn't hurt, Edwards-Helaire has the big game. And Andy Reid stupidly thinks instead, like, oh, I guess we can't use McKinnon. I realize that it's not good, but understand how flimsy the basis is and see how easily that all can just have never happened at all. Anyway, Edwards-Helaire is still fine. The injuries are concerning. It's something we should have kind of expected as a risk, being 5'7", 204 or whatever he is, and especially the way they were using him as those first few games his rookie year, just giving him like 20 carries every game.
Like, he never should have been into the teeth of the line.
Yeah, he should have been all along like a 13, 14 carry, 4 or 5 catch kind of running back. And I know the pass catching thing, people are going to look at his stats and just say, like, oh, he's bad at it, though. Look how bad his numbers are compared to McKinnon and Darrell Williams. Like, go watch the tape of those guys. The defense doesn't cover Darrell Williams. When Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets a target, there's a linebacker there. That's why he gets less yardage. Because Darrell Williams catches the ball, there's nobody there. There's nobody there for McKinnon either, because they don't care, because they're not good. So the Chiefs system, this was the problem with Kareem Hunt and Damian Williams previously, of course. People have such a hard time like taking away any sort of signal from the outcomes of that backfield. Like, they're constantly making just backward conclusions. And anyone who believes that there's a serious question about like who's the better player between McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is one of the people who are confused by it.
There we have it. So that's good contextualizing there when it comes to McKinnon. Understandable, like you said, that we're seeing CEH's price range fall down. He was like a mid 3rd rounder, late 2nd rounder a year ago.
Yeah. And even if McKinnon goes into this next year, if they do re-sign him and he does somehow go into week 1 as like the lead running back, he will burn out. He cannot play 400 snaps. It won't last. He will not play in November if he plays 40 snaps a game in September and October. It won't happen. So yeah. If you want to get the starting Chiefs running back in the 8th round, maybe you can convince yourself of taking Edwards-Helaire this year.
See, there it is. And then when it comes to Penny, we'll use this as a jumping off point. So if I were to redo this draft, I would have preferred to have one of CEH or Penny, not both necessarily, given that I already had Chubb and Dobbins. But I'm happy that I have them both. And in Penny's case, he kind of comes out of just the abyss late in the season this year after Chris Carson, who you've talked about basically since Carson became a thing, where he runs so hard that he gets himself banged up. Penny, of course, hasn't had the cleanest bill of health during his NFL career either, but he looked impressive. He looked like a guy where it's like, oh yeah, like he was a first round pick down the stretch there. So, your thoughts on him? Where his trajectory is going? Does he stick in Seattle? If he does, what does that mean for the him and Carson split? Or what are some potential landing spots?
Yeah, I have no idea where he's going. I don't know what the Seahawks plan to do. They're not exactly bound to Chris Carson, even though they technically did extend him. He's basically I don't know. They're almost like leasing Carson more than they're like truly signed to him. They can get rid of him if they want. Penny's durability is the one concern with him, I think. And it's funny. He was another case that where you just could not get people to look at him with any sort of perspective at all. People just thought, oh, he sucks. I even know like a Seahawks fan who's telling me before the year, like he's the worst one. He's worse than DJ Dallas and Alex Collins. And this is someone who's actually knows a lot about football, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, I'm not. This is not a particular case where I just had some idiot on Twitter that I'm referring to, somebody who doesn't matter. It's like this is a person who knows the Seahawks, and I was like losing my mind trying to convince them. Look, Penny is definitely better than DJ Dallas. I won't even argue college. I just need you to say he's better than Dallas, please. It wouldn't do it. Anyway, Penny was a guy who had a lot of people bitter at him for so many reasons. There's the people who just hate running backs. They hated him because he went in the first round. There's the people who, the Seahawks fans who were just kind of like bitter. Like, why did we use a first round pick on him when we had Chris Carson? Which was a fair point, by the way. Also a fair criticism of that pick was that they took him ahead of Nick Chubb, which I'm a big Rashad Penny fan, but you shouldn't take him ahead of Nick Chubb. That was something we could have told them even at the time. Those are the only reasonable criticisms of that pick, though. Like Penny was a very good prospect. Some people didn't think so because they were confused or looking at something that didn't matter. I don't know what it was. Penny grades well as a prospect for the exact same reasons that players like Chubb and Jonathan Taylor do. And I don't know how some people from afar might imagine my process. I don't know if they imagine me doing some elaborate procedures or whatever, but I don't.
Pouring beakers into other beakers.
Yes, there's a montage, and I'm doing all kinds of stuff. No, it's actually very simple. I basically just kind of click descend on just like speed and production, like that's about it. And Rashad Penny was just completely insane at San Diego State. Like he might have been the most explosive running back pretty much in college history, or at least his final year there. We'll never see anything like it, or at least I wouldn't imagine it. Running for 2,248 yards and 23 touchdowns at 7.8 yards per carry. That's completely insane. I don't know how to compare it to anything. And the whole time he's doing that, by the way, he's returning kickoffs for touchdowns all the time too. Like he returns 7 kickoffs for touchdowns on 81 attempts. Penny is really good at running away from people. He showed that at San Diego State. Then he ran a 4.46 40 at over 220 pounds. So Jonathan Taylor runs for tons of yards. He's pushing 230. He's well over 220, running the 4.39. That's an illustration of how, the gap between Taylor and Penny is basically like Taylor was about as productive, but he's more toolsy. Also, he's probably a little bit harder of a worker. But Penny basically is that same genre of player. He's just big, fast, runs for touchdowns all the time, runs for tons of yards all the time. And he ran very effectively with the Seahawks too when he wasn't hurt. Like the rushing average, the big plays, it was all there. But people, in addition to the people who hated him for, the previous coalition members that I named, this new group of people started hating him because he was not coming through as a fantasy sleeper. So you got this third group of people who just hate Rashad Penny. The first two groups just were mad no matter what. The third group didn't care that Penny was very efficient and explosive because he didn't have the volume. So there's all these people hating him for different reasons. All of them are kind of full of it, in my opinion. And the whole time it was just like, if he just stops getting hurt, he should be very good because he already did it. When he wasn't hurt before, he was already good. So This isn't complicated.
I'm picturing like from the Dark Knight when the Joker walks in on the criminals all having their like lunchtime meeting in that kitchen. I'm just picturing like that, but they're just the coalition of Rashad Penny haters, like a
Yeah,
very diverse
just the
group of
insufferable
people just
people who get
being mad.
yeah, there's so many insufferable people now who just get mad at players for all these different reasons. You see, Mecole gets a lot of it really bad too because it's like the Hakeem Butler hive hates him. The people who wish that they had taken DK Metcalf hate him. The people who draft him in fantasy hate him for not being good. All kinds of these weird.
Anytime he does something good, it's immediately discounted.
Yeah, because of like online media, social media, 24/7 news, DFS, fantasy sports, and everything. There's all these coalitions of just grievance holders that didn't used to exist, and so you get these like swelling of noises and just complaints about things that just shouldn't matter to anyone. And yeah, people getting just developing genuine ire at these players for just no sane reason at all.
Nope.
But anyway, yeah, Penny, I lost the faith even because I just thought like he was busted physically, especially when that knee, like he had the season-ending knee injury. Then he came back late 2 years ago, got busted again immediately. It didn't look right. I was like, man, he's been out for like 2 years with a knee. That can't be good. And then he started missing time with like the calf, whatever it was last year. And they almost put him on before he broke out. They were like, there was a couple days there where they were very seriously putting him on IR. I don't know if that would have been a season ender in that case, but he had a hamstring injury at the time. They almost put him on IR. Then like 4 days later, he went nuts. So what he did last year was basically the same thing that he did, not just at San Diego State, but even the first 2 years of his career off the bench behind Carson, like on a per touch basis, he was basically doing the same thing. But because Carson was hurt, and in this case, the volume happened too, people's perspective totally changed. It was like, he's being the same guy he ever was. He's just playing more. But people saw it as, oh, he doesn't suck anymore for some reason. It's like, no, he never was bad. He just didn't play as much as you wanted him to.
So what does it all mean for this year? And you know, what's your exposure going to look like if his ADP
in the
remains
9th
around
round?
here?
I will shed my. That'll be my, I guess, DJ Chark, Paris Campbell pick of the year. Like he will get hurt, and I will have him on every single roster. But yeah, I think I'm prepared to get exposure to Penny as high as like the 4th round or something. If he signs in Seattle and they cut Carson, or if he signs with some other team that pays him a bunch to be their clear starter, he's going to go a lot higher than the 9th. Like he's going to go a lot higher than the 9th just in general. I think you were in a weird draft here. But yeah, I would expect him to jump into this. I don't know, like go in the same areas like the Michael Carters or something. Like even now, I would expect that to start to be the case more often than not. And when there's some sort of clarity on his situation and people start projecting him with starter workloads, he's going to start going in like the 4th round, I think.
All right, so get on over to Underdog. Get some 9th round Penny shares while you still
and
can.
if you want to see read even more about him in that article on the Dynasty Watch series, there's no paywall on it. So if anyone wants to read about him or Gabriel Davis or Zay Jones, everything that there is about them, I tried to get in there.
All right, I will throw the link to that in the show notes. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, go ahead, look at the show notes or the details, and I'll have the link to Mario's article in there. Mario, before we sign off, let's take it. You know, we only got a handful of minutes left here, but take a gander at this free agent quarterback class, because we have an interesting like confluence of things going on where for the first time in a couple of years, we don't have a strong group of, I know the 2019 draft, it didn't pan out well as far as the quarterbacks went for the most part. But, beyond that, we've gone into draft season thinking that there are at least a handful of potential franchise guys. I don't know if there really is even one of them in this particular class. And now we have, the Rodgers drama in Green Bay, Russell Wilson in Seattle. We also have Big Ben retiring. We have Tom Brady retiring. So these are a lot of, kind of open spots now. And I don't know if there's enough players in the musical chairs to fill them all.
Yeah, I expressed some doubt about Malik Willis in previous podcasts, and I still don't really know what his deal is, but I should say I maybe was too dismissive of him because I don't know. I mean, he had some really brutal tape and some brutal numbers at Liberty, but it's not as if it was half as bad as what Josh Allen put up at Wyoming. So if there is some sort of if there is a such thing as a guy just getting held back by his surrounding team, and if having a certain sum of arm strength and athleticism really does make you just thrive in the NFL even after struggling in college, maybe Willis is one of those guys. But he's like the only one. Even then, I hate this quarterback class so much. So guys like Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Mitchell Trubisky, all as free pickups in free agency, I think are clearly better options than pretty much every non-Willis and maybe like another one. Maybe there's another decent one in there somewhere. I don't really know. But that's how I would approach it if I was a team that needed a quarterback this offseason. I'd just be like, we're going to go get Mariota, Winston, and even Trubisky. Even Trubisky, I would like. Trubisky is bad, of course, but he was really good at North Carolina. Not that Sam Howell wasn't, but I don't think that Howell conventionally grades better than Trubisky did as a prospect. So if you can not spend a first-round pick to get a similar caliber of prospect who now has the advantage of being a veteran rather than a raw rookie, I'm pretty interested in all those free agent guys, even if you're not pinning a 4-year plan on them, but they're cheap right now, and we know they can do something.
No, exactly. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how the markets shape up for those kind of veteran backup types. Do you see Mariota potentially getting some interest as a starter?
I hope so, because I'm insane. So I still think he's better than Ryan Tannehill, but like, it's true. I'm not crazy on this one. Mariota just had a bad elbow and basically got benched before they started AJ Brown. And if they just started AJ Brown all year, I don't even think Tannehill happens at all in Tennessee. So I like Mariota, and there's a little bit of like the fantasy bias, I guess, egging me on, because if Marcus Mariota is starting, Marcus Mariota is probably running quite a bit and getting fantasy point totals that even outpace whatever actual quality of play he might put on the field. And I incidentally still think he probably is pretty good, or at least like if Rodgers gets traded, or sorry, whatever happens, I don't even remember if he's a free agent or what his situation is technically. But like if Rodgers is gone and you're Matt LaFleur, wouldn't you much rather have Mariota starting than Jordan Love? Like, I don't know. There's a bunch of places where I can imagine Mariota stepping in and having like a surprisingly decent supporting cast. But yeah, admittedly, I guess it's not likely to happen for all of him, Trubisky, Jameis.
So I was on the radio in Louisiana this week, and they were just kind of like kicking the tires, a little bit of pre-free agency stuff, and they floated the idea to me, and obviously that they're mostly Saints centric when it comes to their NFL discussion when it's not the regular season, and the idea was basically, what do you think the Saints would have to give up for Jordan Love right now?
Well, if LaFleur wants Mariota, then probably not that much at all. But let's see, he's 2 years into his contract. You probably don't want to go on that 5th-year option because so you got 1 year maybe to find out if you want to go into that very expensive 5th year with Love. I don't know if you could get more than a 4th. Like I don't know if anyone would be willing to pay it, but I don't think they can get more than a 4th, probably something like that.
So that little
it wasn't a good pick, actually. No. They shouldn't have done it, as it turns out.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to wrap it up here for the Rotowire Fantasy Football Podcast. Mario, one last thing to note from last week's show. Despite the 8-leg parlay not hitting, I did get Trey Hendrickson first sack.
Oh, nice. I assume that wasn't quite as much as the 8-leg parlay.
No, it paid out 5-1 as opposed to 25-1 or whatever that 8-leg parlay.
You were close, man. You were close.
Just a couple of, or it was 250-1. It was, I think, like only like 3 of the legs hit. So yeah, my octopus was not fully formed.
Oh yeah, what the hell? I forgot to get outraged that there was no octopus.
Then Jim Coventry on the Twitter Spaces later Thursday explained what an actual octopus is in the gambling sense for what it was being bet on. Essentially, you have to score a touchdown and then also get the ensuing 2-point conversion.
We were not betting on a living octopus.
See, they need to be more clear with that next time. Because otherwise.
So if someone had thrown a live octopus on the field, they would have said that doesn't count because it's not the bet.
It's like, well, the question simply states, will there be an octopus? That is an octopus, so it would have been a whole mess.
It would have been a great bit of case law if they didn't pay out on that and someone successfully lobbed a sea creature on the field.
Yeah, so no, too bad. Hopefully next Super Bowl out in Arizona with a slightly rowdier crowd, more likely to have an octopus access. Maybe they'll go for it.
I don't think there's a betting outcome called a scorpion. So if that's on there, there's only one way to read it.
And, also make sure you check your shoes. You don't want a scorpion in there. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Rotowire Fantasy Football Podcast, presented again by our friends over at WinBet. For Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.
Try Rotowire today, free for 10 days. Get our premium tools, rankings, analysis, and breaking news alerts. No credit card required. Go to rotowire.com/